All right. I do apologize, everyone. Didn't realize I wasn't live when I went through this whole breakdown starting around 3:30. So I'm going to give this another try. I do realize my camera has frozen, so do apologize, but still working out the kinks on this. So we'll just start this from here. So right now, I'm gonna just go over a few of my thoughts after watching the developer direct. You know, last Thursday, Xbox unveiled the Forza Horizon 6 trailer and behind the scenes, and going through some of the stuff that we've seen, some of the things that the community has picked up, some of the things that I've noticed about it. We'll be discussing here, but I'm going to break it down into basically three categories. The first of which being the cars, second of which being the world, and third of which being the player character. And I know the player character is probably the least significant of all of the categories, but I'm going to nonetheless go through just a few things that I've noticed or things that I would like to see within this game. So basically, this is my wish list. I will try to give those credit that have made mention of some of the things noticed in the community. I'm not sure who noticed first for the cars where you could have different wheels front and rear, but that was noticed by a handful of those in the community, seeing some of the cars having a different wheel for front versus rear, which would be pretty cool for setting up more realistically aesthetic time attack cars. But hopping right in, there was mention, and a lot of people have also noticed that on the customizable garages, there seems to be a motorcycle possibly tucked behind the red Evo in that back corner. Now, I know Fun Speculation, or better known as Mav from Fun Speculation, uh, pointed out that there are some arcade machines, and those are also something that I'll touch on later when we get to like the player character portion of this. But if they're going to have motorcycles added to this game, kind of like a la, you know, Project Gotham Racing, where that had motorcycles, that would be a pretty cool addition to this. Now, if no motorcycles are in the game, I'm not going to be broken up, but if they do decide to put motorcycles in, it would be cool for them to go with the full Boso Zuko bike culture aesthetic, as far as having not just the speeder bikes, but also the cross country bikes, as well as some of the Bazuko uh, type bikes that were more so like the Japanese gang culture from 60s and 70s era and stuff. But a lot of those have like very unique fairings and exhausts, and pipes, frames, and things like that. Also, the seats on some of them were a bit different or unique in comparison to other motorcycles of the time. So, seeing something like that would be pretty cool, along with your typical favorite, like Ninja or your Gixxer bikes and things like that. Hope that they have a good mix or a good blend of those, as well as some cross country bikes or some, I don't want to call them rally or rebel bikes, but there's like the ones that are, some people used to refer to them as like rally fighter bikes, but they're basically like a speeder bike with less fairing, more of the frame shown. So something like that would be pretty cool as well. Now, for the cars themselves, I'm going to refer to a game that some of you may know from like the PS2 era. Also, it's a current iteration on PC right now on Steam, and it's also coming to PlayStation. I think later this year. Not sure when there's going to be a port to Xbox, but from that same developer, we did get the JDM Drift to both PlayStation and Xbox. So hopefully, we'll see Tokyo Extreme Racer on Xbox a bit later as well. But with Tokyo Extreme Racer, each one of the cars has basically at least three different hoods, bumpers, and side skirts. So if they could do something along those lines on top of like the normal body kits that they have in the game for some of the cars, it would be pretty awesome. Now the key thing is, granted, Tokyo Extreme Racer only has like 60 or 70 cars or something like that. So having three different kits for each car is probably a lot easier when you only have, less than 100 cars. But when you have 550 cars, I can understand the time and effort it would take to do a visual representation of each type of hood style, bumper style, and so forth. So for a lot of the hood types, I'm hoping if they can't give us something more than like the one that they've shown, where it's like the blower through the hood, or like the turbos through the hood type of deal, or the traditional reverse cowl and cowl induction hoods that they've shown in the past, at least allow us to put some sort of like vents on them, like whether it's a carbon fiber style vent or like a bump with a cut for like, certain offset turbos and things like that would be pretty cool. But having a lot more variety on the different bumper types, spoilers, lips, wings, front and rear, since they're now going to incorporate time attack cars. Some of them will have front spoilers or front wings, and have it where you can add more than just the typical Forza Aero lip. That's the carbon fiber one that always has like the tow bar with the shackle on it above it type of deal. Give us a little bit more variety, or allow us to adjust how far that lip pokes out or tucks under kind of thing. Or maybe the fairings off to the fender sides allow us to have possibly some adjustment, whether it's the angle or the amount of them on some of the fenders and things would be pretty cool. Along with that, considering they are going to have time attack cars, and like I mentioned, having front wings for downforce and stuff would be pretty cool. I also want to see some of the front fairings or bumpers like what you see on some of these time attack cars, where it's a lot more open for braking and cooling, or even things like cut fenders. And we've seen it on a handful of cars like the 240, as well as like I think the old Datsun sedan, where you can completely remove the front and rear bumper. I would like to see them do that for more vehicles. Now, I know a lot of automotive manufacturers want their cars pristine in the game, and that's why there's usually not as much visual damage for these cars. Ferrari, I'm looking at you. You're a problem child. But yeah, when it comes to having a lot of these intakes or radiators or coolers and things like that, having it where you can completely remove the front and rear bumper would be awesome, especially considering the drift culture. A lot of times you'll have it where those items are removed primarily because of the amount of damage from drift taps and such, where it's probably just better to leave the bumper off at that point. So offering that as an option for a decent amount of cars would be pretty cool as well. So that way we can have like the freestanding exhaust visible, or more exposed radiator mods and things like that. I'd also like to see more extreme like camber angles and like ground dragging level like drops or slams, only because that kind of fits into some of the car culture that would be seen at like the car meets. Now, they're not necessarily always driving on the road with an extreme camber like that. There are some that do it more so for show, but hit the switch on the air suspension to adjust it accordingly when they're going to go to speed type of thing. But when it comes to some of the spectacle you'd like to see at like the car meets and such, having those extreme camber angles, having it where the car can be pretty much dragging on the ground would be a cool aesthetic as far as for fitting that car culture in that area. Another thing that kind of goes with that would be something that I believe, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Sorekawa, which is kind of like a bumper trinket, although typically they were used more so as like toe straps. And now we've seen updated or improved toe straps in Forza Motorsport, so I hope that continues into Forza Horizon. But some of those toe straps are decorated, whether it's with certain designs or certain different types of pull tabs or buckles or D-rings or hearts or what have you. In some areas, although this is probably more Americanized than it is over in Japan, some people will have it where they'll have plushies where it's signifying that they're part of drift or street race culture. So having it where the car can be slammed to the ground and those are dragging, prior to them getting ready for a race would kind of fit with some of the, you know, I guess you could say racing style or racing taunts that you would see, in that region as well as in the JDM scene in general. So having something like that would be pretty cool. Another thing I'd like to see, although I know there's a lot of people that have gone with clear lenses or smoked lenses. I'm hoping that they have something along those lines where you could change that. Now, it's not a big, requirement or anything like that, but a good bit of those cars will have different lens colors or coloring for like their turn signals than we have here. A lot of them will be clear and have like the amber bulb or the clear tail lights with the red bulbs and things like that. I don't necessarily want to have it where we can, hand pick each color LED bulb for our car, but for some cars, it kind of fits the overall look for the tuner scene. That would be pretty cool to have in this game. So allowing us to either smoke the lenses, possibly do color tinted lenses for different fog lights, or the turn signals and such, or just make them clear, or leave it as like the factory, default, whether they focus on the export or import market version of the car. That would be a nice thing to add to the recent update that they're going to have where you'll be able to paint on the glass of the car. Now, I'm assuming the glass that they're referring to is the windshield, the rear window, and the side windows. But if we could also do something similar on the headlights, like maybe put tape on it or Band-Aid for like, some of the drift rash and things like that you may encounter, would be a cool aesthetic as well to add to it. Another thing I'm hoping they allow is opacity change for the stickers that we put on the glass. Now, with Forza for years, they've already offered or allowed us to tint the windows in various colors as well as various shades. But in things like GT7, they didn't have that. So what you would have to do is basically go with a block in whatever color or make it dark and then adjust the opacity to make it look like a tinted window. I still kind of want to have something like that as an option for some of the cars, for some of the striping that you may encounter for like if you're continuing the stripes from the side all the way up to the roof. Having it where you can adjust the opacity as it goes across the glass would be pretty cool as well. So it's not just a full solid. I mean, you could keep it solid if you want, but if you want to make it somewhat transparent or anything in between, that you'd be able to have that type of adjustment. And I'm hoping they continue to fine tune the gloss appearance or gloss shimmer to some of the decals or stickers that we apply to the car, or have it where we can do matte on, let's say, a metallic car. So if you want to do matte stripes on a metallic car, but then the next sticker you put on is not matte, you want to have it where it's like your normal gloss sticker. I'm hoping that we'll still have that type of range and function, not just on the body of the car, but also on the glass as well. And if possible, the headlights. That would be a cool added touch. Now, when it comes to I guess you could say the Forza Aero, they did, make mention that there will be new Forza Aero. I'm hoping it's an improvement over what we've seen from Forza Motorsport. I do understand what having 550 cars, it might be a little bit of a hectic thing, but looking at something like Gran Turismo 7, for example, or even Tokyo Extreme Racer. Tokyo Extreme Racer just basically goes with 3 of the most popular styles of either bumper, wing, hood, and so forth. With Gran Turismo, you have the ability to do a custom short spoiler, and by custom, it's either straight across and then the side plates are what you custom shape. And then you can custom do the height. So it could be a short spoiler, mid spoiler, or tall spoiler. And then the plates on the sides are what you can really customize. I don't necessarily need that level of depth for the types of wings that you could put on cars, but if they get something in between what they have currently and that would be an awesome improvement overall. But overall for the cars, like I said, Some community members have seen that it looks like we'll hopefully have the option to switch wheels front to back. As far as if you want to have 5 spoke up front and 8 spoke in the rear, you'll be able to do something like that, or have it where it's a countersunk wheel on the front and a wheel that sticks out on the back. All of those types of options to play around with would be pretty cool. I love the fact that they're going to have that visual wear on the tires for a car with a lot of miles and things. I'm glad they're not going extra sim level like what GT7 does, where you have to do oil changes and rebuild the motor after so many miles. So I'm glad they're not going that far. But from a visual standpoint, I think that's pretty cool. Now, moving on to, well, actually, before we move on to the world, one thing that's kind of mixed in with the cars would be like the tunes, both the paint schemes and tunes in general. One thing I hope that they're able to figure out is how to break out the tune from the wheel choice. And just to give you a kind of a quick example, a lot of the tunes that you'll download usually will go with the lightest possible wheel, and it may not be your wheel of choice. A popular wheel that was for a lot of the Forza games is Speedline. Both the 5-star the white 5-star wheel, and then the black, I think it's a 5-spoke or maybe it's a 5-hole wheel that's sunken in with the Speedline logo on it. Those are probably the 2 most popular, but now there's like 30, like they've added so many wheels in different weight categories that there's now like, I think 32 other wheels that are in that same pound range or lightweight range. It'd be nice if you could break out the wheel from the tune. And if the person that made the tune doesn't want you to do that, have it where they can lock it. So it's pretty much like the system we have currently. But if they leave it unlocked, like let's say they just want to make it where it's a lightweight tune and it's one of the fastest setups, but you want to put a wire wheel that's light as well, you could go ahead and switch that wheel because it would be in the same weight class as the other wheel that they have. It wouldn't be a performance advantage or disadvantage. It should perform the same. It will just have a different look to it. I'm hoping that, if they allow for, like, let's say a tuner to leave that part of it open where you can adjust the wheel or maybe adjust the shift points or something like that on the transmission, that would be allowed. Let the tuner still get the credit for it, but make it so that person that made the adjustment to that unlocked tune can't reshare that tune and get credit as if it was their own personal tune. It's probably worth them looking into. Not the biggest deal if they can't, but being able to have a variety of wheels that you can use and still use a tune that's pretty good would be an awesome change. And the same thing goes with the paint schemes. There are like one of the biggest differences with GT7 is if somebody creates a unlocked paint scheme, let's say they created a perfect, replica of like the, one of the cars from Fast and Furious, but you want to put a number on it because you're going to make this your race car, or somebody recreates a Herbie paint scheme, but you didn't want the number 11 that they put on it. You want to put number 81 or 83 on it, or something to that effect. You could go ahead and do that with an unlocked paint scheme by, basically adding the sticker for the number you choose or the font for the number you choose. And then everything else, remains the same. The person still gets the credit for the download of that paint scheme, and you're unable to share that paint scheme. You're just basically personalizing that paint scheme without having to, ask or barter with the original artist to say, hey, could you paint that same paint scheme with just this number? And like they'll have a million requests, and it's like, yeah, it could be overwhelming. But if you have it where if they choose to leave it unlocked, then you can add your own, let's say club sticker or your own number to it, that would be pretty awesome as well. But for those that don't want their, original artwork changed in any way, shape, or form, they can continue to have it locked by default. And then any of those that want to allow for those types of changes. So that way, if you want to make a Dale Earnhardt type paint scheme, but you want it, instead of the number 3, you want it to be 8, you could go ahead and do that for those that allow to have their paint scheme unlocked you can go ahead and change that. So something like that would be a nice added touch. I'm hoping there's room for that. I would love to also see them allow for decal imports, but we'll get more into that when we get into the world stuff. So looking over the video several times, I know a lot of people have debated whether it's a Gundam at the end or if it's Robotech or whatever. I'm assuming whatever that is, it's going to be part of a showcase race. We all know Forza Horizon's known for its bombastic, showcase races. So having it where maybe the Gundam is doing a combination of running and then transforming and flying or something along those lines, and you're having to beat it while you're racing this certain circuit would be a pretty awesome way to start off your introduction to Forza Horizon 6. I'm also hoping that in this world they have, like in previous games they had stories, which is basically like almost like short single player challenges. I'm hoping they have something that's kind of a nod to Initial D, even if it's just tofu delivery and there's parts of the road where you'll have like a drink in the car that you'll have to, maybe you have to do this part of the story from the inside view to make sure you don't spill the drink while driving on this winding road. Having something like that would be pretty cool. And another, nod to the region that I would love to see them have is a Midnight Racing Club story where, depending on the lore that you listen to, it was a lot of well-to-do businessmen that either own shops, dealerships, tuning shops, or other businesses, and they would take their toys or their pampered cars that they highly modified above and beyond what you would normally find out there in the tuning scene, and they would have like a gentleman's agreement as far as racing. There was no crashing intentionally or causing harm to the public. I mean, street racing is illegal, but they had it with upstanding rules, and it was something that if they were to incorporate that as a story into the game where you're trying to join that club, but you have to show that you're a clean racer and you work your way up the ranks and then slowly are able to build up the car that you're bringing with you to that club. That would be a nice like side story aside from like the festival stuff. So I'm hoping they have that type of nod. And they typically have like drift stories, so I'm pretty sure they'll have something in that regard as well. Learning to drift throughout the city or down the mountainside and things along those lines. I'm hoping there's a focus on tandem drifting and allowing people to kind of get used to that type of close quarters drifting. But that would be another nice story thing that I would like to see them do. Now, one thing that I made mention of Tokyo Extreme Racer earlier in the video. It's one of the games I enjoy right now on PC, and there's a lot of cool things from that game when it was an early preview that were eventually removed in the later release or the final release. And one of those was the cutouts or the U-turn cutouts on some of the highways, where right now, if you're heading east and the boss that you want to challenge is heading west, and you're nowhere near like one of those parking garages where you can exit and re-enter, and you don't want to waste the day, going back to your garage and then leaving and then re-entering the highway and trying to find that boss again, because some of them you need to do like consecutive runs and things. What you used to be able to do when the game first came out is just look for the cutout, like where you would normally do a U-turn on some of the highways, or at least the law enforcement would possibly do the U-turns and stuff. They eventually took those away. So I'm hoping Forza in their, the awesome highway system that we saw in some of the trailer pieces, have it where you can still either cut through the guardrails like you normally could, or there will be actual cutouts, much like you've seen on some of the highways, whether it's for Forza Horizon 5 or Forza Horizon 4, where they have, little shortcut, areas where you could do a U-turn if need be kind of thing. I'm hoping they continue that, tradition. Another thing I would love to see in the world are two particular circuits. Now, I know this is not motorsport. They don't have to have something like Suzuka or any of the tracks that they have in motorsport. But these two tracks here are a lot smaller and more focused on time attack, which we know that they'll have that in the game. And they're also focused on for like some of the drift events and things like that. So one of them is Ebisu Circuit, and the other one is Tsukuba Circuit. If they could add those, or if they can't get the licensing, at least have something similar to those types of locations. Maybe it's even a different layout, but have it where it's a track that you can use, just like the ring, or I guess it was called the ring for or the Coliseum for Forza Horizon 5. That's kind of in the city or just outside the city, that circular map or circular track. Have something along those lines where you can do drift events, or you can make your own custom race events, or have some custom race festival events in those particular tracks. So having something like that in the map or on the map would be pretty awesome as well. I also want to see a return to like garages. As far as I know, they were going to have the car meets, that the one that they showed looked like an open parking lot, but there's got to be some of the garage like in above ground garages where it's just basically like 3 to 5 levels, and you could drift around the entire garage. So I'm hoping they have areas like that. I believe there were a couple garages or at least one garage in Forza Horizon 4. No, Forza Horizon 2 had it, and then Forza Horizon 4 I think had an area that kind of looked like a garage area, but it was more of an abandoned warehouse that you could drift in and stuff like that. So I'm hoping they have some scenes or locations along those lines. Now, when it comes to seasons, we all remember the first thing of seasons as far as with Forza Horizon 4. Every week it changed. I would love to see something like that continue with the same type of intensity or extreme change that Forza Horizon 4 had. Forza Horizon 5 had seasonal changes, but the season changes weren't all that dissimilar. So I'm hoping, just based on the way the seasons are in Japan, we see a bigger variety throughout those season changes, each week and so forth. Now, with those season changes, I also do hope that they continue the trend of allowing us to possibly change the season in photo mode. So let's say, for example, it's summertime, the cherry blossoms aren't dropping their leaves, or at least I don't think they do that until fall or something, or maybe it's spring, it's the other way around. But let's say you have this perfect drift that you did around the corner, but the season doesn't quite match the look that you're going for. Hopefully in photo mode, you'd be able to still have that ability to change the season or change the weather, time of day, and so forth. I'm hoping they even add a few things, like a couple of key things I would love to see them add are filters. And the filters I'm looking for specifically would be more in tune with like the Japanese art style, like kind of like even what they use for the cattle or the cover art. One of the art styles is Sume-e, and the other one would be Ukiyo-e. I hope I'm pronouncing those right. The Sume-e is more of a like black ink with brushstrokes kind of art style. So imagine like standard or cotton stock for the palette, as well as, or for the the background, and then you're using the like brushed ink for the design, where I guess it might be a little bit difficult to turn a fully color scene into that black and white or limited color aesthetic. But if they could pull it off as far as those types of filters, that would be awesome to add that to the mix. For a lot of our photo, I wouldn't say photojournalists, but the photographers in the game, that would be a cool feature to have. Now, when it comes to another feature, tying into the convoy or tying into the car meets, make it real easy to set up convoys. I know when Forza Horizon 5 first launched, convoys were kind of convoluted. it was broken for a bit and then they got it all sorted out. Make it real easy for those that are new to the game from the car meet to be able to join a convoy or start a convoy type of deal. Especially if you have it where there are club members all together in the same instance. Make it easy that club members can be in the same instance, even if they're in different regions of the world. Still, it would be pretty awesome if somebody is across the world in your car club. You can have them, in your same instance, even if they're not in your convoy at the moment. It'd be cool if they had that kind of tech to kind of marry those two instances together. But as far as another thing from those car meets, make it easy to do head-to-head challenges. And this is going to probably sound weird, but to my understanding, there's not just two lane highway traffic setups. There's 4 lane and beyond out there. So having it where you could do a 1v1 or 1v1v1 or a 1v1v1v1. So basically having, if it's 3 lanes, 3 cars, 4 lanes, 4 cars, so you don't have to go all the way back to the drag strip at various points on the map. You can, have it from the car meet location to the highway and have everybody line up. And whether it's, you start by beeping horns, flashing lights, whatever they deem as the signifier, make that a pretty easy setup for those types of head-to-heads. And even have it where you could do 2x2 or 2v2, even if you're not really doing the street racing. Like maybe you're looking to do, head-to-head challenges on drifting. So that way that ties into the whole tandem drifting that you would like, or a lot of people would like to see done in this game. Having meets along those lines or challenges like that would be pretty cool from the car meet area, along with the features that they made mention where you'd be able to buy tunes, buy paint schemes and such. Now, moving to the last area that I kind of want to touch on, and I know this is probably going to be the area where a lot of people are like, why is he talking about this? It would be the player character. So one of the things that I would love to see as far as like the player character setup is seeing them add beards or facial hair in general. I know it's not that big of a deal. I want to see something more than just the Santa beard that they, have during the holiday season. Not that it makes the biggest difference in the immersion, but knowing that we're going to have, be able to go to our friends' houses or their custom garages and things, or if it's going to be a matter of where you're standing outside your car at the car meet, or just the normal emotes that we do when we win a race or before we start a race, or if we finish on the podium, whatever the case may be. Having additional, let's say, hairstyles or not as much the hairstyles, because I think they have a decent amount already. I usually just go bald because what reasons, but if we could have facial hair, a variety of a couple of beards, mustaches, maybe that would be something that'd be kind of cool for us to finally have for our player character. Not the biggest deal if it doesn't happen, but I kind of feel it's time for them as they've progressed all these years, adding more and more to the inclusion of whether it be prosthetic limbs, hearing aids, and such. Beards should be on the list. Not the biggest order, but would be kind of cool. And considering the fashion culture out there, a wider variety of fashion, everything from retro to modern, would be kind of cool. Now, one spin that I want to do or would like to have them do for the clothing would be to have it where we can pick the color of the clothing item as opposed to having to grind for, let's say, the specific jeans or sweater that we want. I mean, I guess they could make it more like Grand Theft Auto where you just go to the store and buy the clothing you want or something like that. But like there have been times where it's like, oh, they gave me the, I call them the high water hip hugger, like jeans in black. And I don't want those. I just want either the baggy ones in blue or the slim fit in blue would be fine, but the baggy ones, like what I actually wear, would be preferred. So have it where if you get, let's say, the baggy jeans, but you don't want them in black, you don't have to grind or get another wheel spin for it. You could just go ahead and change them from black to blue or to light blue or stonewash or acid wash or green or whatever you choose. Make it so we have at least a little bit more freedom in picking the types of clothing for our characters without having to grind for a specific red sweater versus the yellow one that you get, and it doesn't seem like you're going to get the red sweater until you get 300 wheel spins or something. So that would be a nice kind of change when it comes to that. And I would also like to see them possibly either add a paint tool or allow for like a club logo import. And I kind of touched on it earlier, but a game like Gran Turismo Sport as well as 7 has it where you can import your designs or certain logos and things like that. Now, it would be awesome if we could do that for the entire paint shop for the cars, but I can understand if they're concerned about moderation and stuff like that. People uploading obscene stuff and things, but if you narrow it down to just like, let's say, the club logo, I think that's reasonable or manageable, where it's under the same guidelines as your user pick for your gamer pick or something like that. I think that would be something easy enough where you could, let's say I want to import my Fuzzy Belvedere logo for my club, or instead of having to repaint it in the game, pixel by pixel. Or let's just say they don't have, a Master Chief decal or his helmet as far as one of the decals, but you would love to have that as your club logo. Have it where you can import that into your club art or something along those lines. And any of the club members can now either add that to their clothing or to their cars, to signify they're in, the Master Chief Club or something along those lines. I think that would be a nice change or update that they could, add to things. Another thing I would like to see, and this kind of ties into the filter I was mentioning earlier for photo mode, the ability to hang some of the screenshots that you take in game or that you upload to Forza.net, have it where you can hang those in your player house. And once again, make sure that they have a variety of different filters. So if you wanted to have some of your screenshots look like the same, similar to the artwork that they're using for the cover, the Sumi art style, it would be pretty cool if we had the ability to take some of those shots and hang them up on the walls and things along those lines. Now, touching on the arcade machine that Mav from Fun Speculation pointed out in his video yesterday, I would like for us to be able to walk up, not necessarily walk up to the arcade machine, but let's say we're at our player or at our friend's house or even at our own house, and we go over to that arcade machine. That would be like another way to access your rivals menu or something along those lines. Like you go to the arcade, you have your list of friends or any of them that had like a drift zone time, or maybe they had a trailblazer time or a time attack time that you're looking to beat, or they're at your house and they're looking to beat some of your leaderboard stuff. They could do that at the arcade at your customized garage and things. I think that would be kind of a cool touch. Not the biggest deal if they don't have it. I know that would probably be above and beyond what just having rivals from the menu is fine. But if they're able to pull that off, that would be just kind of a nice immersive touch. But that's basically it as far as the things that I would like to see in this game. I mean, well, at least for now, there are probably a bunch of other things that will come up, or specific cars or specific body modifications to the cars or tuning modifications to the cars I would love to see in the game. But for now, that kind of covers a majority of the stuff after watching the Dev Direct. There is one thing that's kind of a sore spot for me that I hope by year 2 and 3 they kind of either change or remove, and that's the community vote for the backstage pass. After doing all the work to grind for the backstage pass, you also have to hope that the community votes in your favor for the car that you might be missing. Now, there are some of us that will play it religiously for 5 or 6 months straight, and then we might take a break for a new game and then come back and realize we missed one of our favorite cars. And now the only way to get it, because you can't find it in the auction house and it wasn't available in the store, is for when you get one of those backstage passes. Well, let's say the other part of the community that played, the months that you didn't play already have that car, but they want another one so they could sell it or give it a different, tune or setup or something. They wind up voting for that car. You're pretty much hosed for that backstage pass that you grinded for, and now it's kind of useless until that car comes up for that vote again. I get it that they're trying to do it for player retention, but it kind of in some cases goes against that player retention, because if I'm grinding to get the backstage pass and I know the specific car I want, I don't want to have the community's vote have to, be the influence, because I could go on Discord and on social media and try to get people to vote in favor of a particular car. Some of them might vote against that car just to spite me, kind of thing. But in any event, it would be awesome to have it where the player grinds for this pass and gets to choose the car that they want for any car in the game that's not a paid DLC. So if it's been released in the game as a timed car, special event, special showcase thing, like what they do for the backstage pass cars anyway, let me just be able to go backstage, take my pass, and pick any of the cars that I may have missed from, a month or so ago when I decided to go back to Starfield or go back to, State of Decay or something along those lines. So sore spot for me. I know probably most of the community could care less, but for those that are completionists and want all of the cars or big on car collecting, but also want to play other games like Division or Diablo and so forth, this is kind of like that sore spot for me, that they seem to drag on and on and on, and it seems like it doesn't help or retain people, because it actually, at least for me, it frustrates me more to the point where the car I want, that I would take the time to paint, take the time to set up, take the time to finally drive, I have to wait umpteen weeks in hopes that it comes back around, as opposed to get the car, do the tune and whatnot, focus on the car, and then I could focus on another pass to get the next car that I may have missed. That to me would be more user friendly, but we'll see if they listen to my rants or rambles on that. But in any event, I greatly appreciate all of you guys that have taken the time to check this video out. I do apologize. I wasn't able to look at the chat while doing this video. This is actually, if you may have missed, I didn't realize I wasn't recording or wasn't live around 3:30 when I was talking to my camera, and then nothing recorded. But I my camera is for whatever reason locked up at this point, so I'm on limited screen. So I do apologize. But the big thing is, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to check this out, being fans of the Forza series, much like I am, and looking forward to this great game that we're going to get May 15th for those that are doing the early access. Get that premium edition or the premium upgrade. I know it's a little bit pricier than previous years in comparison, and I'll get into that more in another video. But yeah, hope to see everybody in the streets of Japan come May 15th, and be on the lookout for more of my thoughts on upcoming things or things I'd like to see in Forza Horizon. If you have any suggestions, questions, comments, definitely leave them in the comments, or message me on Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, Nintendo. I only have a handful of friends on Nintendo, or even on Meta with my what do you call them, Meta Quest 3 and stuff like that. But all in all, thank you so much for taking the time. Hit that like button if you like any of the items I talked about. Downvote if you could care less about the game, I guess. But all in all, give me your feedback on what you thought of the video, as well as my wish list, or put in the comments some of the items that are on your wish list, whether they're similar or completely different. I'm real interested in seeing that. So thank you again for your time, and hope to see you guys in the streets of Japan come May 15th. Thanks again. Take care.